Pattie Boyd inspired some of the most iconic songs in rock history, was married to a Beatle, and became the muse of two guitar legends. For decades, she maintained a discreet reserve about the most intimate details of her marriage to George Harrison. But in recent years, through interviews, her 2007 autobiography, and a historic 2024 auction, Boyd has finally shared the complete truth about her relationship with the quietest Beatle. This is the story of what Pattie Boyd has revealed about George Harrison, a man she describes as her soulmate, and why, more than 2 decades after his death, she still wishes she could talk to him one last time. To understand what Pattie Boyd has to say about George Harrison, we first need to understand who she is and why her testimony matters so much. Patricia Ann Boyd was born on March 17, 1944, in Taunton, England. By age 19, she was already a successful professional model, photographed by the best in the world: David Bailey, Terence Donovan, Brian Duffy. She appeared on the cover of British Vogue. Twiggy, one of the most iconic models of the 1960s, publicly stated that she based her look on Pattie Boyd's style. She wasn't just any girl. She was the face of an era. On March 2, 1964, everything changed. Boyd was hired as an extra for the Beatles' film, A Hard Day's Night. That day, at Paddington Station in London, George Harrison saw her and, as she recounts in her autobiography Wonderful Tonight, half-jokingly asked, "Will you marry me?" Boyd laughed. She turned him down. She had a boyfriend, but Harrison didn't give up. "Well, if you won't marry me, will you have dinner with me tonight?" She rejected that invitation too, but something had begun. In her autobiography, Boyd describes that first encounter clearly. "On first impressions, John seemed more cynical and brash than the others. Ringo the most endearing, Paul was cute, and George, with velvet brown eyes and dark chestnut hair, was the best-looking man I had ever seen." By May 1964, they were together. They vacationed in Tahiti with John and Cynthia Lennon, using aliases. George was Mr. Hargreaves, Pattie was Miss Bond. In July, Harrison bought a house called Kinfauns in Esher, Surrey, for £20,000. By the end of that year, Pattie had moved in with him. On Christmas Day 1965, while driving through London, Harrison officially proposed. They married on January 21, 1966, in a discreet ceremony at Epsom Register Office. Pattie was 21 years old. George was 22. For the next 11 years, Pattie Boyd wasn't just a Beatles wife. She was present at historic moments in music. She sang on the song Birthday from the White Album alongside Yoko Ono, participated in the worldwide broadcast of All You Need Is Love, traveled to India with the Beatles, met the Maharishi, and introduced George to Eastern spirituality. She lived Beatlemania from the inside, and then she watched it all fall apart. In 2007, more than 30 years after their divorce and 6 years after Harrison's death, Pattie Boyd published her autobiography, Wonderful Tonight. It was the first time she spoke publicly with complete details about what really happened in her marriage to George Harrison. And what she revealed was complicated. Boyd describes the beginning as magical. In an interview with Start at 60, she said, "It was really fabulous in the beginning. We were both so young, we were able to go out, hang out, play. He was the sweetest guy and my family loved him. My mother particularly adored him. The early years were filled with music, travel, and spiritual exploration." Harrison wrote love songs about her. I Need You in 1965. If I Needed Someone that same year. For You Blue in 1970. And most famously, Something in 1969. A song many consider one of the greatest love songs ever written. But there's always been controversy about Something. For years, everyone assumed it was written about Pattie. The music video used footage of the Beatles' wives, reinforcing that connection. But later in his life, Harrison told interviewers, "I didn't write it about Boyd. I just wrote it and then somebody put together a video. So then, everybody presumed I wrote it about Pattie, but actually, when I wrote it, I was thinking of Ray Charles." So what's the truth? In her autobiography, Boyd provides clarity. She says Harrison told her directly, in a matter-of-fact way, that the song was about her, This is one of those moments where Boyd's testimony becomes crucial. She was there. She heard it from George himself in private before the revisionism began. But Boyd's revelations weren't just about the beautiful parts. She also broke her silence about what went wrong. In a 2022 interview with The Telegraph, Boyd explained, "I felt that I had to leave George because things were getting really out of hand. George was just being a different George. I think he wanted to spread his wings and take advantage of being the handsome, famous, rich guy that he was." By the early 1970s, the fairy tale had cracked. In her autobiography, Boyd documents multiple affairs. There was Maureen Starkey, Ringo's wife. Boyd describes this as the final straw. There was Christie Wood, wife of guitarist Ronnie Wood, and others. The picture Boyd paints is of a man who had changed, not from cruelty, but from restlessness and the intoxication of fame and freedom. She writes, "Cocaine was different, and I think it froze George's emotions and hardened his heart." But the most explosive revelation in Boyd's book wasn't about George Harrison at all. It was about Eric Clapton. Boyd revealed that starting around 1968 or 1969, Eric Clapton, George's close friend and one of the greatest guitarists of all time, had fallen deeply in love with her, and George knew about it. In March 1970, Clapton began sending Boyd love letters, signing them Layla, the name he would later use for his most famous song. At a party at Robert Stigwood's house around 1970, Clapton confessed to Harrison directly, "I have to tell you, man, that I'm in love with your wife." And George's response? According to multiple accounts, he essentially gave his blessing. But Boyd stayed with George. She turned Clapton down. And what happened next is one of the most dramatic stories Boyd has ever told. She writes that Clapton showed her a packet of heroin and said, "Either you come away with me or I will take this." Boyd was appalled. She tried to grab it and throw it away, but he snatched it back. She turned him down, and for 4 years Clapton became a heroin addict. Meanwhile, Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs was released in 1970. An entire album about Clapton's unrequited love for Pattie Boyd. The song Layla became one of the most famous rock songs of all time. Bell Bottom Blues was about her. So was Wonderful Tonight. Written years later, at least 10 major songs were written about Pattie Boyd by two of the greatest musicians in rock history. No other person in music can claim that distinction. But by 1973 and 1974, Boyd's marriage to Harrison was disintegrating. In 1973, Harrison began an affair with Maureen Starkey. There was also a period where they essentially swapped partners with Ronnie and Christie Wood, Boyd with Ronnie in the Bahamas, Harrison with Christie in Portugal. At Christmas 1973, Harrison suggested divorce. Then came a moment that sounds like fiction but is documented fact. Boyd describes a guitar duel at Friar Park, their Victorian mansion, between George Harrison and Eric Clapton. Actor John Hurt witnessed it and described the air as electric, with nobody daring to say a word. Boyd writes, "George handed him a guitar and an amp, as an 18th century gentleman might have handed his rival a sword, and for 2 hours, without a word, they dueled. Eric had won." On July 4, 1974, Pattie Boyd left George Harrison for Eric Clapton. Here's where Boyd's revelations become most poignant, because it's not the scandal that matters most to her. It's what she learned too late. In her autobiography, Boyd writes something that contradicts everything you might expect. "Eric and I were playmates, but George and I were soulmates, and I had let something special go without analyzing what was happening between us." The divorce was finalized on June 9, 1977, by mutual consent after 2 years of separation. Boyd's lawyer, Pattie Grafton Green, said, "There was no overreacting, no greed or playing with each other's emotions. I wish all divorces were so well handled." Boyd married Eric Clapton on March 27, 1979, in Tucson, Arizona. At the reception on May 19, 1979, at Clapton's house in Surrey, something remarkable happened. George Harrison, Paul McCartney, and Ringo Starr all attended and played music together. It was the first time 3 Beatles had performed together since the rooftop concert in 1969. Denny Lane, who was there, described the music as absolute rubbish, but historically significant. Harrison had moved on. He married Olivia Arias in 1978 and seemed happy. But years later, Boyd wanted to know if leaving had been the right decision. She describes a conversation they had after the divorce. "Just tell me something, George. Did I make a mistake leaving? Should we have split up?" And Harrison responded, "No, you did absolutely the right thing." But that answer didn't satisfy her. Not really. Boyd divorced Clapton in 1989, citing infidelity and unreasonable behavior. She's now married to Rod Weston, whom she wed in April 2015. But in a November 2022 interview with The Big Issue, Boyd made the most revealing statement of all. "If I could have one last conversation with anyone, it would be with George. Because he died in 2001, and every so often in my life, something will happen and I'll think, George is the only one I can talk to about this." That's the sound of genuine regret from someone who had decades to reflect. On November 29, 2001, George Harrison died of lung cancer at age 58. But before he died, he came to see Pattie one last time. In that same 2022 Big Issue interview, Boyd revealed what happened. "Before he died, he came to visit me. He was very ill, but we didn't talk about him dying. I think he came just to see me and catch up and to see where I live. He brought me a few little gifts and we had tea and listened to some music. And when he left, I thought, I'll never see him again." Think about that for a moment. A dying man, knowing his time is short, chooses to visit his ex-wife from decades ago. Not for closure, not for confrontation, just to have tea and listen to music. When Rolling Stone asked Boyd about George's reaction to her leaving with Clapton, she revealed his response, "Well, I'm glad you're going off with Eric instead of some idiot. No bitterness, no anger, just acceptance and, perhaps, genuine care for her happiness." That final visit confirms what Boyd has been trying to tell us through all her revelations. Their connection was deeper than the scandals, deeper than the affairs, deeper than even the famous songs. In March 2024, Pattie Boyd made another major revelation, but this time without words. She auctioned her personal collection through Christie's, a collection that included love letters from both George Harrison and Eric Clapton, photographs she'd taken of the Beatles in India in 1968, and other intimate memorabilia from her life. The auction ran from March 8th to 22nd, 2024. It included 111 items. Christie's had estimated the collection would bring in about £380,000, roughly $483,000. The final total? £2.8 million, approximately $3.6 million. That's 7.4 times the estimated value. The most expensive item was the original cover art for Clapton's Layla album, painted by E. Franson de Schomburg. It sold for £1.976 million, roughly $2.5 million, setting a world record for album cover art sold at auction. But perhaps more revealing were the love letters. One letter from Eric Clapton, written on a page torn from Of Mice and Men in January 1971, sold for £119,700. In it, Clapton wrote, "I am writing this note to you, with the main purpose of ascertaining your feelings toward a subject well known to both of us. What I wish to ask you is if you still love your husband, or if you have another lover." Another letter, signed Dear Layla, was even more desperate. "Why do you hesitate? Am I a poor lover? Am I ugly? Am I too weak, too strong? Do you know why? If you want me, take me, I am yours. If you don't want me, please break the spell that binds me." By auctioning these letters, Boyd made a choice. She could have kept them private forever. Instead, she allowed the world to see the full story. Not just the romance, but the obsession, the pain, and the complexity. George Harrison's handwritten lyrics for Mystical One sold for £47,800. Photographs Boyd took of the Beatles in India sold for approximately €61,000. Why auction these items now? Boyd hasn't explicitly stated her reasons in detail, but the timing is significant. She's 81 years old as of March 2025. She's been married to Rod Weston for a decade and seems settled. The auction feels like a final statement, a way of saying, "This was my life, this really happened, and now you can see the proof." For nearly 3 decades after George Harrison's death, Pattie Boyd could have remained silent. Many ex-wives of famous musicians do exactly that. They take the memories to their graves, preserving their privacy and the dignity of the deceased. Boyd chose differently, and that choice tells us something important. In her autobiography, interviews, and through the auction, Boyd has painted a portrait of George Harrison that's more complete than almost any other source. She doesn't sanitize him. She doesn't demonize him. She presents him as he was: talented, spiritual, complicated, sometimes unfaithful, often distant, but also capable of profound connection and unexpected grace. She's revealed that Harrison could be selfish, that cocaine changed him, that he pursued other women, including her friend's wife, that he became someone she didn't recognize. But she's also revealed that he wrote something about her, directly contradicting his later claims, that he gave his blessing when she left with his best friend, that he told her she'd made the right choice in leaving, that he visited her shortly before his death, not with any agenda except connection. And most importantly, she's revealed that decades later, with 2 more marriages behind her, he's still the person she wishes she could talk to. In 2023, Boyd released another book called Pattie Boyd: My Life in Pictures, with more than 300 photographs from her life. She's exhibited her photography at the Roxy Hotel in New York City. She remains active on social media. On April 1st, 2025, she tweeted about the upcoming Sam Mendes Beatles films, where she'll be portrayed by actress Amy Lou Wood. "I wonder who will be cast to play me? That's assuming that I get to feature in any of the movies." She's not hiding. She's not ashamed. She's simply telling her truth. When we talk about the Beatles, we usually focus on the 4 men, John, Paul, George, and Ringo. But the women who loved them, lived with them, and survived them have their own stories. And in Pattie Boyd's case, that story has shaped rock and roll history in ways few realize. At least 10 iconic songs exist because Pattie Boyd existed. Something, Layla, Wonderful Tonight, Bell Bottom Blues. Songs that have been played billions of times, that have soundtracked weddings and breakups and road trips for 3 generations. But what Boyd has revealed through breaking her silence isn't really about the songs. It's about the human beings behind them. George Harrison was not a saint. The quiet Beatle had a wild side, a restless side, a side that could be cold and unfaithful. But he was also capable of extraordinary emotional intelligence, accepting that his wife loved his best friend, wishing her happiness even as his own marriage crumbled, visiting her on his deathbed not to resolve anything but simply to be present. And Pattie Boyd? She's revealed herself as someone who made a choice she believed was right at the time, who lived a remarkable life with 2 legendary musicians, but who understands, with the clarity that only time provides, that she may have let go of something irreplaceable. "George and I were soulmates," she wrote, "and I had let something special go." That's what she's really been telling us all along. Not a scandalous tell-all. Not an attempt to profit from tragedy. But a simple, painful truth. Sometimes you don't realize what you had until it's gone. And sometimes, even fame and songs and history aren't enough to fill that particular emptiness. Pattie Boyd broke her silence about George Harrison because she needed us to understand that. And now, finally, we do. The woman who inspired Something and Layla is still here at 81 years old, still creating, still remembering. And the man with velvet brown eyes and dark chestnut hair, the one she called her soulmate, lives on not just in his music but in her memory of who he really was. That's what happens when silence finally breaks. The truth, complicated and beautiful, comes flooding through.